Hey guys, Coach here. Hey, thanks for tuning in for a few minutes. I very much appreciate your attention, and whatever you're doing, I hope you're having a decent time about it. Hey, welcome to this week's topic, which in my opinion, is a rock solid landscape element. No pun intended. We are talking about the use of stone in the residential landscape, its versatility and long-term usefulness in almost any residential landscape application. Yeah, again, I'm glad you're here. Let's get started.
Hey friends, please check out the description for this podcast where you will find important links related to this video, links to the website, discounts, and much more. Also, don't forget, Yard Coach now offers personalized consultations to help you get your project launched and completed, or just answer your specific landscaping questions on a personalized level. See the website at youryardcoach.com for more details. Now back to this week's episode. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back. Hey, to start with, stone as a landscape topic may not be the most exciting conversation to have, but it certainly bears repeating in some sense. You will not find a more durable, useful, creative element in the landscape than stone. You know, for the most part, stone availability is kind of a local, regional thing. Beyond nearby quarries and retail bulk materials yards, what may or may not exist on your own property, some stone starts to get really expensive in a quick hurry, especially if the stone that you've fallen in love with comes from out of state. Then you're really talking about dollars that can really start to add up in a hurry. So if you're happy with the stone that is local or regional and the cost of getting it to your landscape is fair, then buy local. Buy it either by the pickup load if you have a pickup, or various size delivery vehicles that quarries and retailers have for delivery for sometimes an additional fee, depending on how much you're spending. Where I live up in northern Maine in the US, we have a small selection of stone which we can generally pick from, mostly kind of a charcoal slate in various sizes, some river cobbles, and boulders of various kinds and colors. And lastly, some gray crushed stone. Almost looks like limestone, I'm not sure, but that's about it. There's not any main bulk materials yard in my area. Maine, you get that? That was good, huh? Unless you want to drive a couple hundred miles to much larger cities where those options do exist. From where I'm at, I'm happy with what is local. Number one, it's kind of new to us. Charcoal slate is something that I have not had available when I was living out west. We had more of crushed limestone, sandstone boulder. We used to call them moss rocks because the supplier always had moss on them, which was just the most desired look at the time that I was landscaping for folks. But as far as what you have in your area, I was able to use quite a bit of what came out of some excavation that I did for the French drain and also for the backyard raised bed. I mean, tonight I'm taking a few bucketfuls in JD and going down to the creek and kind of where the outlet dam is for the pond, I'm placing some more stone in there. It's not costing me anything because it was already here except for my time. So as far as landscape uses, stone fills many useful applications. I'd like to take a minute, so let's look at some, shall we? First, let's take a look at driveways. Everybody needs one, if you're a homeowner, to get from the street and to your parking spot or garage. The surface with which you get there can be complicated or it can be simple. Complicated might fall in the category of formed and poured concrete. Now, if you live in the burbs, chances are, you have a concrete driveway that goes up into your garage. Everybody generally has one. I had one, everyone's had one if you've lived in that situation. The other complicated form would be pavement or tar, as some people say back east of the Mississippi, tar. And that is kind of right on par with poured concrete as far as cost. And there's also some step processes that you have to go through with concrete as far as forming, reinforcing, substrate bolstering in some cases so that it's not going to sink and crack depending on your soil conditions. And the same goes for tar. Oftentimes it has a substrate that is put in and compacted before the pavement is put over the top of it. And it does get kind of pricey. Then there's stone and gravel. Easier for the DIYer, and following some guidelines can be done relatively inexpensively. Certainly as the DIYer, you're going to save half the cost, if not more, of a professional installation. Now let's call out the elephant in the room, shall we? You will have to learn how to put in a gravel driveway so that that gravel driveway lasts a long time. You're going to have to put some kind of effort into the native soil that's there as far as a compaction. You're going to have to bring in either some type of a driveway fabric and then bring in some larger stone and then do a top dressing. So renting a skid steer or something like that for a few days might really pay off rather than doing it by the pickup load and the shovel load. It will go a long ways in the investment, and you're not having to pay the professional to come out and do it. So driveways can be of various size stones depending on what your application is. Maestro and I just finished our resurfacing of our driveway, which is about driveway length 350 feet, and then the turnaround area out in front, and then down the front side and the back side, all done with a small stone dust product, which was already here. We brought in 54 cubic yards, 3 large 10-wheeler dump truck loads, and had them placed here last week. And it took me the better part of 3 days with JD, my tractor. And part of that was redoing the front area. We got rid of the 1-inch stone that was directly out front because, number one, it was horrible to try to snow blow in the winter. All I was doing was just chucking 1-inch rocks all over the place, where this stone dust product tends to kind of freeze up and solidify, and it's much easier to remove. You can do it by shovel, you can do it by snow blower, you can do it by tractor snow blower, much easier than that 1-inch. So we took the 1-inch out directly in front of the house, pushed some of it aside to the side of the garage and another area between the 2 large boulders, and created a couple of beds there, which we'll talk about later. And then the remainder went down the front driveway just a short distance, where I've created an additional parking place down there where I'm going to put one or both of the cargo trailers. So by not having to buy a lot more 1-inch stuff, I was able to grade and fill the understory part of that parking pad with the 1-inch product. I retained it with some large logs from trees that were on the property and staked them in place with 2x4s and structural screws and made a nice parking area. The driveway stone material itself was relatively easy to work with. I put it down in depths that averaged, depending on the need, 2 inches to some cases over 3, almost 4 inches thick, where we were getting really threadbare, especially on the steeper part of our driveway. And then I took it all the way down out to the road. I widened one small area down by the culvert area, and the stone worked out really, really well. Now when we look outside, we have a much different textured look. It still has a driveway front yard look, but that's going to change either later this year or next spring, when we are going to redo a small patio out front and introduce some more greenery. Right now, we're just kind of exhaling because we've been doing a lot of work in the past 2 months, and it's taken its toll. So for right now, we're concentrating on the stone driveway project, which just got finished We have a couple of wheelbarrow loads left over, not too much. We basically used, out of that 54 yards, we used 53 and a half. And I have just a little pile over by the small cargo trailer. That's all that's left. So we were pretty happy with the amount that we got and what we were able to do with it. Anyway, moving on. You can also use stone for edging. Edging beds between two different size or two different colors of stone can really define a space. I used a little bit here on the north side of the house where we used some larger, heavier rock that separated the 1-inch crushed from the stone dust driveway area so that the two don't mingle together and get sloppy. I have also used this 1-inch crushed stone as a mulch in the two beds. That's right, stone is a mulch. It is very, very good, and I'll tell you what, once you put it down, and you put it down correctly, you don't have to worry about other aspects of mulching that bed ever again, provided that you do an additional step, and that's putting down a good quality landscape fabric underneath it, in and around where your plants are or plants are going to be, and then putting down your stone at a depth of about 2 inches, sometimes more, but you generally don't need it that deep. And if you're putting it down as a mulch and coming out towards a driveway or a walkway, make sure that you keep the level of the stone like a 1/2 inch below the edge of those other walkways or driveways. That way it won't end up getting run over and kicked up on walkways, etc. The other thing is use stone as a mulch and use the size correctly, especially if you have dogs who are active and love to run and cut and fetch and chase each other and everything else. If you have smaller stone mulches and the dogs go cutting through, they can often fling stuff a ways. Ask me how I know. So make sure that you have stone that's of a size that their paws aren't going to go kicking around. So as a mulch, a minimum depth of 2 inches, 3 inches is ideal, and it can really do quite a number for the plants there. It will cool the root zone at these depths. It is relatively, if not always, permanent, provided you install it correctly. It stays in place and it doesn't float or wash away like organic mulches do, like, barks and that kind of stuff. Unless you're using it, and most people don't use it on steep slopes as a mulch, but you can if you do it correctly and creatively. You can mulch hillsides with stone. You just have to horizontally put in maybe a couple of larger lines of stone across there and then backfill down to them. It looks really cool, and you can plant it right afterwards. I would probably, on steep hillsides, if there's a weed problem, yes, I would probably use a weed fabric. But if there isn't that much of a weed problem, then I would mulch without it. Even though there would be some infiltration, I think it would stick to the hillside a little better. Using stone of various sizes and colors can create a variety of structure and texture to the landscape that you don't often get a lot with just wood organic mulches. So consider the stone as part of an element that is going to be placed and it's going to stay there for a long, long time. So how do you go about installing stone as a mulch? You should use a quality landscape fabric, like I mentioned, and put it underneath the stone to prevent the stone and the soils infiltrating themselves and allowing a weed bank that's always in the native soil to come up really easy. This will make the bed really stay new looking for a very long time. And if weed seed does happen to blow in, which is always going to happen, it's very easily removed. It's not broken off at the surface of the ground and regenerates. It generally just pulls right out and makes it very easy to take care of and maintain. And you can generally look at it as a stone mulch is going to be there for until you remove it. It's not going to go anywhere. So during heavy downpours and that kind of stuff, it is not going to float. So using larger stones that we can call boulders can be added with the use of tree dollies, wheelbarrows in some cases, small tractors, or if you get some big ones, obviously a larger tool like an excavator, larger skid steers, etc. Here at Brook and Pond, we have 3 really large boulders out front. Way too large in my opinion, but we kind of decided to work with it instead of against it, at least for this first year or two, instead of moving them, because it's kind of cost prohibitive to have a huge, large excavator come out here and move 3 rocks, at $160 an hour, door to door. So I would rather right now try to work around it, plant around them, and see if that satisfies my my creative jam. Certainly my little compact tractor JD is not going to move those things. I couldn't pull these things with the truck. They're just way too big. They're probably 4-ton minimums. So anyway, we'll work around it. Stones and boulders can also be used as retaining walls, which you have seen on our channel recently. You just need the means of wrangling them into place and backfilling behind them with native soils or imported soils, whatever you might have. And stone really sets off that kind of natural look to it, rather than being maybe a block wall or a wood wall or something like that. So think about that as a raised bed option. In some cases, folks are literally giving stone away, which was the case that we found on Facebook Marketplace not too long ago. And we took advantage of it by going down to the local town and picking up 2 pickup loads. Actually took the 1-ton dually and squished it just a little bit. We got that much. And that particular rock went down to our creek, where we were able to bolster and reinforce the bank areas where it goes under the driveway and through the culvert. It had been washed by rain events in the past that really, I know on at least one occasion, actually took the driveway out, but you can see the erosion that has taken place and no one's ever done anything about it. So we found some free stone and brought it up there and carefully placed them, and then actually planted some of the natives behind one side of the creek wall. And hey, we've had a couple of rain events where the creek did certainly rise, and you could see that the idea that we had behind it really worked well. And that was because of the stone that we carefully placed and chinked in one stone into another and kind of nested them. So it's a very strong retaining wall. Stones of certain sizes can also be caged to create what they call gabion walls, which we sometimes see along roadways and highways and freeways. Strong wire cages are fabricated and laced together and then filled with heavy stone, generally filled in place where they're actually going to work, and then filled up with that stone and then wired. The lid is wired down, and you can literally stack these things on top of each other, and they become a very heavy, strong, and permanent type of a retaining wall. And some other uses. I've seen little mini gabions that hold mailboxes out at streets and stuff, which you can do that as well. Stone can also be used for drainage and be decoratively placed in a certain fashion to kind of mimic dry creek beds. But really, it has a drainage function behind its beauty. Here the stone of various sizes mimic a natural creek, where you have some smaller stone down at the bottom, and then some larger, 3x5 cobbles up towards the edge of it, and then maybe a boulder or 2 interlaced. And it doesn't have to be a straight line. You can make it as serpentine as you want through your landscape. And when the heavens do open up, this beautiful little element of your landscape kicks into high gear, and it can capture, with some drainage system installation, can capture all the downspout runoff from your home and can be funneled into this dry creek bed. You could use your French drain to be drained off into this dry creek bed. Once the rain event is over with, it will drain out safely because you've kind of slowed the water down with the use of the stone. And that is a nice, safe, sane way to rid yourself of unwanted water on your property and make sure that it's not that straight shot. You know, water, if you look at a creek, Mother Nature doesn't send it, straight down the hillside. She meanders it down through the course of least resistance and oftentimes slows that water way down. And that's what the dry creek bed can do for you. Stone applied to buildings as a veneer can add beauty and elegance to like any home. We've seen homes with stone pillars and wainscoting out front. We've seen it as a lawn edging and just some of the other uses that stone can kind of come into play. I think a very good use of stone and a way to naturalize a space is incorporating stone and water in the form of a water feature. Intermingled with select plant material can create a very special place in the landscape and a landscape spot that might otherwise be just average at best, with maybe a large overgrown sheared whatever, and you could make it into a very special backyard retreat area for yourself. And lastly, stone used as steps, patio surfaces, and walkways can be quite a step up from other materials. Flagstone patios, front door entry areas, steps and stairs can really bolster permanence, structure, and certainly curb appeal. Just study up on how they are installed before leaping into a project one weekend. Remember, size and color contrast that blend well together really shine. I can remember a limestone and river cobble combination that I used one time at a landscape, and it was kind of a dark bluish limestone color and then a tan buffed riverstone look. And the two, separated by a thin edging, really contrasted well together, and then the flagstone walkway that was in the middle really looked good. It was a nice finished look. But in any case, using these two together, this will make a cohesive and much more finished look for sure. Hey, that's what I have for you this week. We're talking about stone in the landscape, stone use. Not everything has to be vast lawns. It doesn't have to be cement, and it doesn't have to be pavement. It doesn't have to be just plants and floatable mulch. You can introduce stone in many sizes, shapes, and colors to really add that next level of landscape prowess to your resume. Hey, if you guys have any questions, I'm an email away, youryardcoach@gmail.com. Don't forget to check out the website if you're looking for some inexpensive education, and I'm also available for designing and video consultation. As always, to your guys' landscape success, I'll catch you next week. Goodbye for now.